It's about family, about truth, and about the courage it takes to face the hardest realities. This all unfolded in a federal courthouse in Manhattan, where a famous man, Diddy Combs, faced a trial that gripped the nation. But what shook everyone to the core wasn't just the charges or the legal drama. It was the moment his 83-year-old mother, Janice Combs, took the witness stand. If you're like me, you know that a mother's words carry a weight nothing else can. And that day, her words changed everything. Now, I'm not one for courtroom gossip or tabloid tales, but this isn't just about a celebrity on trial. It's about a son and a mother, and the bond that can both shield us and force us to see the truth. Diddy, as most folks know him, had built an empire in music and business. He was a name in every household, a man who seemed to have it all: fame, fortune, and a smile that could charm anyone. Through the early days of his trial, he sat there looking confident, whispering with his lawyers, even offering a nod to supporters in the gallery. But when his mother was called to testify, well, you could feel the air leave the room. Even the judge seemed taken aback. No one saw this coming. Janice Combs walked slowly to the stand, her back straight. Despite her years, her eyes clear with purpose. She didn't look at her son, not at first. Diddy, who'd been so composed, froze. His hands, once flipping through papers with ease, stopped midair. His face went pale as if he'd seen a ghost. And in a way, maybe he had, because the person who knew him best, who'd raised him from a boy, was about to speak under oath. I can only imagine what was going through his mind. Was it fear, shame, or just the sinking feeling that the one person who'd always stood by him was now on the other side? The prosecutor spoke gently to Janice, knowing full well how hard this must be for an elderly woman to sit there in front of strangers and speak about her own flesh and blood. "Mrs. Combs, thank you for being here. Can you tell us about your relationship with your son?" She took a deep breath, steady as a rock, and began. And let me tell you, what she said wasn't just testimony. It was a mother's heartbreak, laid bare for all to hear. Janice told the court how she'd raised Sean as a single mother, after his father was tragically taken from them when he was just a child. She worked long hours, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, to give him a chance at a better life. "I wanted him to be strong, to make something of himself," she said, her voice soft but firm. And he did. He rose from humble beginnings to become a music mogul, a billionaire, a name known around the world. She beamed with pride, recalling his early days, how he could charm anyone, how he had a gift for leading others. But then her face darkened. Somewhere along the way, something changed. She spoke of how success came so fast, and with it a world where everyone said yes to Sean. People treated him like the rules didn't apply, and slowly she saw him start to believe it. By the early 2000s, when his career was at its peak, Janice noticed things that worried her. His temper flared when anyone questioned him. He seemed to control everyone around him, brushing off boundaries as if they didn't exist. "I told myself it was just the pressure of his world," she admitted. "The entertainment business is tough, and he had so much on his shoulders." But then there were moments that chilled her visits to his homes, where young women looked lost, or scared staff who seemed afraid to speak rooms she wasn't allowed to enter. One memory stuck with her. She recalled dropping by his Miami home unannounced one morning after a party. "Mothers do that," she said with a faint smile, and a few in the courtroom chuckled nervously. But the scene she walked into wasn't funny. Staff were cleaning up not just the usual mess, but collecting phones from rooms. A young woman was crying as a security guard led her out. When Sean saw his mother, he was angry she hadn't called ahead. That anger, that secrecy, it planted a seed of doubt in her heart. Over the years, those doubts grew. She tried talking to him, asking questions as any concerned parent would. But he'd wave her off, saying she didn't understand his world, that everything was consensual, that it was just how things worked in his industry. When accusations from women started surfacing publicly around 2017, she called him right away. I asked if there was any truth to it, she said. He told her they were lies, that these women just wanted money, that this happened to all successful men. I wanted to believe him, she confessed, her voice heavy. He was my son. But in late 2023, after a lawsuit from a woman named Janice couldn't ignore it anymore. She confronted him again alone in his New York apartment. I told him I needed the truth just between us, mother and son. That day, something in him cracked. He didn't confess everything, but he said words she'd never forget. Mom, you don't build what I've built by playing by everyone else's rules. Sometimes people get hurt. That's business. Her voice trembled as she repeated it. That's not how I raised him. That's not right. When a video surfaced in 2024 showing Diddy assaulting Cassie in a hotel hallway, Janice was devastated. She called him demanding answers. He tried to explain it away, saying it was a bad moment, that he wasn't that person anymore. But she didn't believe him. I'd seen that anger in him before, not at me, but at others over the years. The man in that video wasn't a stranger to me, and that broke my heart. As she spoke, Diddy sat still as a statue, staring at the table in front of him. His lawyers scribbled notes, but he seemed far away, lost in the weight of his mother's words. Janice went on telling the court about finding disturbing notes in his office lists of women's names with words like handled or potential problem next to them. When she asked about it, he snatched the paper away, saying it was business, nothing for her to worry about. But a mother knows when her child is hiding something, no matter how old they are. She even started keeping her own notes, writing down things she'd seen and heard over the years. I was afraid I was losing perspective, that my love for my son was clouding my judgment, she explained. Writing it down made the pattern clear, and it terrified her. By the time she visited him in detention after his arrest in 2024, she knew she couldn't stay silent. She told him she needed the whole truth before she could keep supporting him publicly. His response shook her. The truth is, I created a world where I made the rules, where what I wanted happened. Was it always right? No. Did people get hurt? Yes. But that's how power works, Ma. Janice's hands shook as she told the court. I told him that consent isn't real if it's forced by fear or pressure. He just looked at me and said, "That's not how it works in my world." Those words, more than anything, showed her how far he'd strayed from the boys she raised. She loved him, always would, but she couldn't pretend anymore. I'm here because the truth matters, she said, looking at her son. I'm here because the women who were hurt deserve someone to acknowledge their pain. And I'm here because Sean needs to understand that no amount of money or fame puts you above decency. When she finished, something in Diddy broke. His shoulders slumped. The confident mask he'd worn for weeks fell away. For the first time, he didn't look like a powerful man. He looked like a son facing his mother's disappointment, a judgment he couldn't escape. As Janice left the stand, their eyes met briefly. No words passed between them, but that look said everything: decades of love, pain, and a mother's hope that he might still find his way. The next day, after hearing his mother's words, Diddy made a choice no one expected. He took the stand himself. Gone was the flashy suit and bold demeanor. He looked humbled, almost small, as he spoke to the jury. I listened to my mother yesterday, really listened. I've been hiding from the truth for so long, I almost believed my own lies. She taught me respect, integrity, to treat people right. Somewhere I lost sight of that. He admitted to creating a world where his desires ruled, where people couldn't say no, without fear of losing everything. I called it leverage, not coercion. I told myself everyone benefited, everyone consented. But I ignored the power I had, the way it made real choice impossible for so many. He didn't deny the charges, not racketeering, not coercion, not the pain he'd caused. And when asked about his mother's testimony, he nodded. She told the truth. I said those things to her. I was still justifying it, then telling myself power had different rules. I couldn't see how wrong I was. By the end of his testimony, Diddy had all but confirmed the prosecution's case. Soon after, in a stunning turn, he changed his plea to guilty. The judge accepted it, scheduling sentencing for 6 weeks later. As he was led away, he didn't look like a man who'd lost a legal battle. He looked like someone who'd finally let go of denial, maybe finding a sliver of peace in the truth. Janice was there for the plea change, watching quietly. Outside the courthouse, she spoke briefly. Today is difficult, but necessary. I love my son unconditionally, but love without truth isn't love at all. I hope this is the start of healing for Sean, for those he harmed, and for our family. At sentencing, victims spoke of the damage Diddy's actions caused their careers, their trust, their sense of worth. When given a chance to speak, Diddy apologized to them, to his children, to his mother. I want to say I'm sorry to everyone I've hurt, to the women who trusted me, and whose trust I betrayed, to my kids who have to live with my mistakes, and to my mother who taught me better. This story isn't just about a trial or a fallen star. It's about a mother's love, tough and unyielding, that forced her son to face himself. It's a reminder to us all at any age that truth matters more than comfort, and that real love sometimes means saying the hardest things. For Janice, for Diddy, for those hurt along the way, I hope this is the beginning of mending what's broken. And for us watching, maybe it's a nudge to hold our loved ones accountable, not out of spite, but out of care. After all, isn't that what family is for? As I sit here thinking about Sean Diddy Combs and his mother Janice, I can't help but feel a mix of sadness and hope. The courtroom drama may have ended with his guilty plea and sentencing, but the real journey for him, for his family, for those he hurt, feels like it's only just beginning. At our age, we've seen enough of life to know that admitting wrong is only the first step. What comes next? The hard work of making amends and rebuilding trust. That's where the true test lies. Let me share more about what happened after that day in court, and what it means for all of us watching from the sidelines. When Diddy was sentenced, the judge didn't hold back. The charges, racketeering, coercion, sex trafficking, carried heavy penalties, and the court heard from several victims whose lives had been upended by his actions. Their words weren't just about anger or loss. They spoke of years spent feeling silenced, of dreams shattered by fear and manipulation. One woman voice, trembling but strong, said, "I trusted him to be a mentor, but instead he used his power to take away my voice. I'm here to take it back." I felt a lump in my throat hearing that. How many times have we seen power misused, not just in fame or fortune, but in our own circles, in quieter ways? Diddy's sentence was long as it should be for the harm caused. But when he stood to speak before the judge's final word, there was something different in him. He didn't make excuses or plead for leniency. Instead, he looked out at the courtroom victims, family reporters, and said, "I've spent too long running from the truth. I can't undo the past, but I can take responsibility for it. To every person I've hurt, I'm sorry. To my children, I'm sorry for the legacy I've left you to carry. And to my mother, thank you for loving me enough to make me face myself." Janice, sitting in the front row, wiped a tear, but kept her gaze steady. A mother's pride and pain all wrapped in that one look. After the sentencing, the world outside the courthouse buzzed with reactions. News channels replayed clips of Janice's testimony, calling it the turning point that broke through years of denial. Social media, which I'm still getting the hang of, was flooded with opinions, some angry, some sympathetic, many just grappling with how a man so admired could fall so far. But what struck me most was how this story started conversations far beyond Diddy himself. People began asking harder questions about the entertainment industry, about how power and fame can shield wrongdoings for decades. Old interviews popped up, showing industry insiders hinting at how things work eerily, echoing what Diddy had admitted. It made you wonder how many others have stories like this, buried under glitz and glamour. For those of us who've lived a few decades, we know industries, whether music business or even our own workplaces, can hide dark corners. I remember whispers in my own time about bosses or leaders who got away with too much because no one dared speak up. Janice's courage reminded me that silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's just fear dressed up. Her decision to testify at 83, no less, showed that it's never too late to stand for what's right, even when it costs you personally. I think of my own children and grandchildren. Would I have the strength to do what she did if I saw them stray so far? It's a question that keeps me up at night. In the weeks after sentencing, Janice stayed mostly out of the spotlight. But she did give one more statement through a family spokesperson. My heart is with those who suffered because of my son's actions. I pray for their healing and for Sean to use this time to reflect and change. A mother's love doesn't stop, but it must be honest. I hope others learn from this power is a responsibility, not a weapon. Her words hit home for me. We've all seen folks, maybe even ourselves at times, wield influence in ways that hurt, even if unintentionally. Her call for accountability felt like a lesson for every family, every community. As for Diddy, life behind bars isn't the end of his story, though it's a hard chapter. Reports say he's been quiet, spending time writing letters, some to his children, others to those he wronged. Though not all have accepted his apologies, he's also reportedly working with counselors, trying to understand how he lost his way. I don't know if redemption is possible for everyone, but I do believe in second chances, especially when someone owns their mistakes. At our age, we've made our share of errors, haven't we? The difference is whether we learn from them, whether we try to make things right, even if it's late. The ripple effects of this case reached far beyond one man. Record labels and entertainment companies started reviewing their policies, promising to protect vulnerable people in their ranks. Artists who once worked with Diddy spoke out, some in shock, others admitting they'd heard rumors but didn't act. It's a painful reckoning, but a necessary one. I think of the young folks in that world, talented, ambitious, often naive. They deserve better than a system that lets power corrupt without consequence. Maybe this is a wake-up call, not just for music, but for any place where influence can silence truth. For the victims, the sentencing offered some closure, though healing is a longer road. Many have joined forces with advocacy groups, using their voices to help others who faced abuse in powerful circles. One woman said in an interview, "I don't want my pain to be the end. I want it to be the start of change." That resilience, that choice to turn hurt into purpose, reminds me of so many strong souls I've known over the years. It's a quiet kind of bravery, isn't it? Not loud or showy, but steady like a river, carving through stone. Reflecting on all this, I keep coming back to Janice. At 83, she could have stayed silent, stayed comfortable. But she chose the harder path because she believed in truth, in accountability, in the kind of love that doesn't just protect, but corrects. I think of the Bible verse, "The truth will set you free," and how often that freedom comes with pain first. Janice's testimony didn't just change her son's fate, It changed how many of us see the world. It reminded us that no one is above right and wrong, and that family at its best holds up a mirror we can't ignore. So what can we take from this, friends? Maybe it's a call to look at our own lives, our own circles. Are there truths we've avoided because they're too hard? Are there ways we've let power, big or small, go unchecked? And for those we love, do we have the courage to speak up when they're wrong, not out of judgment, but out of care? I know I've been guilty of looking the other way at times, thinking it's not my place. But Janice showed us it's always our place to stand for what's right, no matter how late in the game. As I wrap up this story, I'm left with hope, believe it or not. Hope that Diddy finds a path to genuine change, that the victims find peace, that Janice finds solace in knowing she did the right thing, and hope that we as a society learn to value truth over image, accountability over ease. Life teaches us lessons at every age, doesn't it? This one, delivered through a mother's unwavering love, is one I won't soon forget. Let's carry it with us in our families and beyond, and strive to be better, not perfect, but better every day.